There are moments when you feel as if something is watching you from within. You can't quite explain it, but it's there. A silent pressure, a faint suspicion that something in the way you relate to others doesn't quite fit. It's not failure, not defeat, not rejection. It's something deeper, subtler, older. A feeling that you're playing a game whose rules you never really understood, yet you keep moving the pieces as if you knew exactly what you were doing. But deep down, you know you don't. And then, a question begins to take shape in your mind, slowly, as if life itself were whispering it close to your ear. Why do some people connect so effortlessly while you have to try so hard? You don't say it out loud because it sounds vulnerable, but you do acknowledge it in silence. And that recognition is the precise point where everything you're about to hear begins. I won't tell you yet what makes a person magnetic. I won't tell you how it works. Not yet. First, you need to enter the space where real transformation happens. That mental place where you begin to see what has always been there, but you never truly noticed. It's like stepping into a dark room you know by heart, except this time you decide to turn on the light. What you see may unsettle you, but it will also set you free. Imagine this. A room full of familiar objects, each placed just 1 inch away from where you remembered them. Nothing has changed, yet everything feels different. That's what it's like to look at yourself without filters. You realize that most of what you thought was natural was actually impulse. That what you believed was connection was anxiety. That many of your words weren't born from your essence but from fear. And that the silence that once terrified you is the same silence that can now return your power. There's something almost cinematic about this awakening. It's like walking down a long corridor lit only by the glow of a candle. Each step reveals more of your patterns, your tendency to react too quickly, your need for reassurance, your habit of over-explaining, your urge to prove your worth without being asked. Don't judge yourself for it. We all walk like that until someone hands us the right candle. But listen carefully. What you're experiencing right now isn't a coincidence. It's not random that you're here, in this moment, hearing this. Something inside you has sensed, however faintly, that the way you've been relating to others doesn't reflect your true potential. Not because you're lacking, but because you've been acting from a place that isn't truly yours. Sometimes life pushes you through exhaustion. Not the exhaustion of the body, but of the soul, the weariness that comes when you realize you've been giving more than you receive, feeling more than you express, waiting longer than you should, giving yourself before there's reason to, adjusting before being seen. And then comes a truth too raw to ignore. You're not failing to attract. You're failing to understand the real source of attraction. But before your mind rushes to find blame or quick fixes, stop. Breathe. You didn't come here for motivational phrases or surface-level tricks. You came because you sense there's a deeper level, a quieter, more grounded, more authentic space from which true presence is built. A presence that doesn't speak loudly, yet leaves an imprint. That doesn't impose, yet transforms. That doesn't compete, yet cannot go unnoticed. Here's where the most important realization appears. That kind of presence can't be learned, it's revealed. It can't be manufactured, only discovered. It can't be rehearsed, only unearthed. It's already there, hidden beneath layers of fear, impatience, insecurity, or over-effort. But it exists, and it holds a quality that no modern technique can replicate. Authenticity. It's yours. It's the part of you that has never doubted its own worth. Now, imagine something else. Picture yourself standing before someone who deeply attracts you, Maybe their eyes, their voice, their way of being, their energy. Something about them stirs something inside you that you can't quite control. But this time, pay close attention not to them, but to you. Notice what shifts in your breathing, your posture, your tone. Notice the ancient impulse rising, the haste, the need, the anxiety dressed up as genuine interest. Do you see it? That's the mechanism that's been sabotaging you for years, and you never even realized it. It's not you who's failing, it's that mechanism. It's not your essence that scares people away. It's your urgency. It's not your worth that's invisible, it's your noise that eclipses it. That's why you're here, because it's time to silence the noise. Stoicism isn't a cold or distant philosophy. It's a way of being, a way of shaping your character, so your presence becomes a lighthouse instead of a storm. So your energy aligns instead of chases. So your inner stability creates the outer attraction you've been chasing without success through effort. And here comes the revelation you need to hear. To conquer is not to please. To conquer is to embody. And you can only embody what you truly understand. That's why what you're about to learn isn't a list of tricks, phrases, or shortcuts. It's 12 principles designed to transform your inner world into a quiet magnet. 12 rules not to make you liked, but to turn you into someone whose value can be felt even before they speak. 12 ways to understand connection so deeply that those who once overlooked you can no longer ignore your presence, not because of volume, but because of order, not because of insistence, but because of calm, not because of need, but because of composure. And now that we've lit the candle and revealed the first stretch of this hallway, you're ready to go on. Let's begin. First Stoic lesson. Don't try to impress, try to understand. There's a moment, right before you truly get to know someone, when your mind races ahead of reality. A glance, a gesture, a tiny detail awakens something in you, and before you even realize it, your whole being is activated. You don't choose it, it just happens. It's that invisible instant when your body wants to move forward, when your words want to come out too soon, when you feel you must say something, anything, so you don't lose the chance to connect. And that's exactly where the most silent and common mistake begins. Trying to impress. You do it without thinking, as naturally as breathing, as if your worth depended on that single moment. But when you act from the urgency to please, you lose something priceless, your center. And when you lose your center, you lose your mystery. And when you lose your mystery, attraction fades. Stoicism understands something few people ever see. The need to please is, at its core, fear. Fear of not being enough, fear of rejection, fear of indifference, fear of invisibility. When you try to impress, you shrink into a smaller version of yourself, one that rushes to adapt to what it assumes the other person wants. And so you start shaping your presence around someone else's expectations instead of your own essence. That diluted version of you might win temporary approval, but it will never earn respect. And without respect, there's no authentic attraction. The irony is that the people you most want to impress sense it. They feel that inner tremor, the urgency, the subtle emotional vibration of someone trying too hard to prove their worth. And when that happens, the connection loses depth before it's even begun. But there's another way to exist, one that few practice, because it demands emotional courage and inner discipline. Instead of trying to impress, you try to understand. It sounds like a small shift, but it's the difference between anxiety and presence. When your goal isn't to be accepted but to understand the other, your energy changes, your gaze changes. Your posture changes. Your entire presence becomes grounded, balanced, serene. You're no longer there to convince. You're there to observe. You're not there to earn a reaction. You're there to perceive who the person truly is. And that shift in intention changes everything. Imagine you're talking to someone you're drawn to. If you're trying to impress, your mind becomes a stage filled with noise. What should I say next? Did they like my comment? Should I talk more? Should I talk less? Did I sound interesting? Too distant? Too intense? Am I ruining this? While you wrestle with that noise, you stop seeing the person in front of you for who they really are. You don't listen, you wait for your turn to perform. You don't observe, you calculate. You don't connect, you just try to fit in. Without realizing it, you're not conversing with a person, you're conversing with your fears. But when your intention is to understand, there's no rush. You don't worry about impressing because you're not treating the moment as a competition. You're simply present. You notice the way they speak, the tone they use, the words they choose, how they react to silence, how they breathe after finishing a sentence. You're discovering, not chasing. And discovery brings calm. And calm makes others feel safe, safe enough to open up, to show sides of themselves they'd never reveal to someone too busy trying to be liked. Authentic connection doesn't grow from tension. It grows from stillness. Marcus Aurelius said that the wise man listens more than he speaks because he understands that listening is a way of seeing the world. To a Stoic, observation isn't passive. It's a form of power. You don't control a situation by forcing it. You master it by understanding it. The same applies to attraction. When you try to impress, your attention is on yourself. When you try to understand, your attention is on truth. And truth is infinitely more magnetic than any clever line. Understanding has a quiet psychological power. People who feel truly heard let their guard down, their mental speed slows, their tension softens, their need to perform fades, and without realizing it, they start revealing parts of themselves they usually hide. Not because they're weak, but because your presence feels safe. And when someone feels safe with you, attraction happens naturally. Because there's no deeper connection than the one where both can simply be without fear of judgment. You don't get that by trying to impress, you get it by understanding. Human nature has an odd mechanism. The more you chase validation, the further it runs. The more you seek to understand, the closer it comes. The reason is simple. Need demands, understanding offers. Need drains, understanding nourishes. Need presses, understanding invites. Need performs, understanding rests. And resting in someone else's presence is an emotional luxury few can give. The one who understands without judging, listens without anxiety, and observes without needing the spotlight becomes quietly magnetic. But there's something even deeper. When you try to impress, you fragment. When you try to understand, you integrate. Your mind stops being split between what you feel and what you show. You stop acting from expectations you don't understand and start acting from a purpose you do to discover. This intention purifies the interaction, replacing anxiety with something steadier, curiosity. And genuine curiosity is one of the strongest signs of emotional balance. The curious don't fear what they might find. The fearful never dare to look. Understanding doesn't mean idealizing. It's not seeing the other through fantasy or romantic projection. It's observing without expectation, without assumption, without hurry. It's allowing the other person to reveal themselves at their own pace. Most people have never truly been seen. They've been judged, labeled, compared, admired superficially, or ignored entirely. But few have been observed without agenda. When you decide to be that kind of presence, you create something that can't be faked, a connection that feels real. Stoicism insists on separating intention from emotion. If your emotion wants to please, your intention must remind you, "I'm here to understand." If your impulse wants to rush, your mind must say, "Observe first." If your fear wants to interfere, your character must whisper, "I'm not here to prove, I'm here to discover." Every time you choose observation over urgency, you reclaim power, you reclaim direction, you reclaim mystery. Because to understand is not just to look at the other. It's to look at yourself in relation to the other. To notice which parts of you react, which awaken, which tense up. To recognize your urge to please and hold it with calm. To sense your fear of loss and refuse to obey it. To hold your presence like a quiet flame in a dark room. And that flame, once lit, shines brighter than any effort to impress. That's where attraction truly begins, when you no longer want to impress, when you want to see, when you want to understand. That's the moment when the energy shifts, and so do you. Second Stoic lesson. Calm is your most attractive language. There's a moment in every human interaction when the atmosphere shifts. Sometimes it's a brief pause, an almost invisible gesture, a silence that lingers just a few seconds longer than usual. Most people grow uncomfortable in that space. They feel the need to fill it, to say something quickly so the tension disappears. But they don't realize that it's precisely in that instant that perception is rewritten, that energy takes shape, that true presence begins to speak without words. That single moment of stillness reveals more about you than any perfectly crafted phrase ever could. And it's there, in that exact pause, that the language very few master but everyone senses begins to emerge. Calm. Calm isn't stillness, it isn't coldness, it isn't indifference. Calm is silent authority. It's the purest signal that you don't depend on the outcome, that you don't need to control or manipulate where the situation is going. It's energy that rests within itself. A peaceful mind doesn't seek to prove it's worth it, simply embodies it. And in a world where most people are restless, agitated, and reactive, that tranquility becomes magnetic. Not because of an artificial mystery, but because calm is the rarest sign of strength. Those at peace with themselves don't compete, beg, or justify. They simply are. When you observe someone who radiates calm, you perceive something that can't be faked. Some people speak slowly, but aren't calm. Some move gently, but aren't at peace. True calm is felt before it's seen. It's an invisible vibration that orders the space, that makes others lower their guard, that turns a conversation into something deeper without anyone asking for it. That kind of calm doesn't come from techniques or poses. It comes from inner mastery. And inner mastery can only grow from a mind that's learned not to obey impulse, not to serve anxiety, not to lose itself in fleeting emotions. Stoicism always saw calm as the clearest reflection of virtue. For Marcus Aurelius, a man who could remain serene in the midst of chaos wasn't detached, he was wise. He understood the nature of things, that nothing external could disturb his mind without his permission. He knew that other people's words didn't define his value, that the behavior of the world didn't set his direction, and that the emotions of others didn't have to become his own. Calm wasn't passivity, it was power, it was control, it was freedom. Imagine a conversation where someone looks at you with curiosity. Most would tense up, talk faster, try to say something impressive. But you, standing in serenity, feel no such urgency. You don't need to fill the space. You don't need to impress. You don't need to react. You allow the conversation to breathe. You allow the other person to feel that there's no rush, no pressure, no evaluation, no chase for attention. And that silent permission, that emotional spaciousness creates an environment where everything flows more naturally. Calm is powerful because it communicates a simple but striking truth. I need nothing from you. And when someone senses that, something unexpected happens. They relax, they open, their defenses lower. They feel safe, because need creates tension, but serenity creates trust. And trust, in the emotional realm, is the fastest road to authentic attraction. A calm mind thinks clearly, listens precisely, and observes deeply. The other person feels truly seen. They sense they're not competing with your anxiety, not battling your urgency, not trying to navigate through your insecurities. They feel free to be themselves without fear of being misunderstood. That feeling is rare and therefore priceless. To be a calm presence in a chaotic world is to be a lighthouse in the storm. You don't need to move for others to find you. But calm doesn't mean absolute silence, nor does it mean rigidity. It means every word you speak comes from a stable, not impulsive place. That your eyes don't dart around seeking approval, that your gestures aren't hurried but deliberate, that your voice doesn't tremble trying to be liked. It flows from the security of someone who doesn't need to convince anyone of anything. This harmony between your inner and outer worlds is deeply attractive because it shows something essential. You are the master of dens, yourself. Human allure isn't built on surface charm, it's built on stability. Most people can be captivating for a few minutes, interesting for a while, witty for a moment. But only those who embody calm can sustain a memorable presence, because calm is the language of self-control, and self-control is the language of strength. Strength, when expressed quietly without imposition or exaggeration, turns into magnetism. Notice what happens when someone loses their calm. Their voice quickens, their breath shortens, their eyes dart, their speech falters. You can feel the inner fracture. And even if you can't name it, you sense fragility, not emotional fragility, but fragility of presence. That's why, when you meet someone who can hold their calm even in discomfort, something within you respects them. Calm inspires respect because it demands courage. The courage to face discomfort without escaping, to hold silence without breaking it, to listen without rushing to respond. Calm is an act of bravery because it forces you to confront yourself, to hear your thoughts while hearing others, to feel your emotions without surrendering to them. To stay present when reacting would be easier. And that form of courage creates a kind of allure. No words can match an attraction that is felt, not spoken. Stoicism teaches that a calm person is one who governs themselves. And those who govern themselves inspire trust, because if they can hold their inner world steady, they can hold the outer one too. That emotional stability builds connections that don't break easily. When you stand before someone calm, you're not facing a performance, you're facing an essence. That essence, that tranquil presence, speaks without needing many words. Silence becomes a bridge, pause becomes harmony, rhythm becomes a language of its own. And that inner harmony feels like an invitation to approach, to explore, to discover who you really are. Calm isn't improvised. It's trained, built, cultivated. It's the result of understanding that emotion shouldn't rule presence, that anxiety shouldn't guide action, that haste shouldn't decide speech. Calm is the outer expression of an inner pact, the promise never to surrender your power to anything or anyone. That's why calm attracts, because it reveals what few people have. Because it shows a mastery that can't be faked. Because it proves your worth doesn't depend on outcomes. Because it demonstrates that you are already enough without effort. And in that moment, attraction stops being a goal and becomes a consequence. Third Stoic lesson: dignity attracts more than desire. There's a moment small, almost invisible, when a person reveals their true worth. It doesn't happen when they speak, or when they show interest, or when they try to connect. It happens when they choose to walk away calmly from where they are not met with reciprocity. It's such a simple act that most people overlook it, yet it carries one of the deepest forces a human being can express: dignity. Where need collapses, dignity rises. Where desire becomes disorder, dignity aligns. Where anxiety invades, dignity stands firm. And that's why it's magnetic, because while desire pushes, dignity sustains. Most people, when they feel attraction, betray themselves without realizing it. They lower their standards, they tolerate inconsistencies, they justify silence, they excuse indifference, they bend to fit into spaces that don't want them. They don't do it out of weakness, but out of excess desire. Yet that excess, though it may look like passion, is really lack. And lack, no matter how well disguised, has a scent. You can hear it in the tone of voice, in the quick reply, in the sudden urgency, in that faint anxiety vibrating behind every word. It's not a crime to feel it, it's human. But when you act from that place, you lose something irreplaceable: your axis. And once you lose your axis, everything else collapses. Stoicism teaches that nothing external deserves your inner surrender. Not rejection, not indifference, not someone's uncertainty. Marcus Aurelius wrote that every time you give up your own judgment to please another, you become a slave to their approval. And that kind of slavery is the most deceptive, because it wears the mask of romance, of genuine interest, of "I just want to try." But if trying means losing yourself, it's not interest, it's self-abandonment. And no real attraction can ever grow from self-abandonment. Dignity isn't pride, it isn't arrogance, it isn't coldness. It's clarity, the ability to hold your essence, even when you deeply desire something. It's saying, "This matters to me, but I matter more." And though you may never say those words aloud, people can feel them. They show in your posture, in your gaze, in your silences, in your timing. Dignity is a language stronger than any speech, because it shows that your worth isn't dependent on anyone's reaction. That inner independence is the most seductive power that exists. Imagine you're interested in someone. Most people, at the slightest sign of attention, speed up. They adjust their behavior. They change their tone. They rearrange their day. They sacrifice their emotional balance. Without realizing it, they enter a kind of emotional survival mode where every move becomes an attempt not to ruin the connection. But when you act from fear, the other person feels it. Maybe they can't explain it, but they sense it, the tension, the need, the rush to please. And that energy, believe it or not, pushes them away. Now, imagine another version of the same moment, you holding your rhythm, observing, listening, letting interest unfold naturally. No overproving, no overgiving, no offering more than you receive. Not out of strategy, but out of self-respect. That version of you doesn't rush. That version doesn't beg. That version doesn't plead. That version knows when to leave quietly once the other's energy turns ambiguous, inconsistent, or lukewarm. That version doesn't dramatize silence, it simply reads it. And if reciprocity isn't there, it walks away without noise. That's the energy that transforms your presence. A perfect balance between desire and self-control, between vulnerability and strength, between openness and boundary. There's something profoundly attractive about those who know how to leave at the right time. Something that can't be copied, something that can't be faked. When someone senses that you can walk away calmly, they understand that your attention isn't free, that your presence isn't on sale, that your interest isn't an unlimited resource. That makes them take you seriously. Not because you're unattainable, but because you're coherent. Incoherence kills attraction. Coherence multiplies it. Dignity, at its core, is coherence. Coherence between what you feel and what you allow, between what you want and what you accept, between what you give and what you receive. Most people feel desire but tolerate indifference. They feel attraction but accept crumbs. They feel interest but endure coldness. That gap between what you feel and what you allow destroys self-esteem. And when self-esteem erodes, attraction dies. Because nothing is less attractive than someone who abandons themselves just to avoid losing another. The Stoic understands something essential. It's not about winning the other person, it's about not losing yourself. That's why their presence feels so grounded. Because they don't negotiate their center. They don't alter their essence for context. They don't adjust their value according to attention received. Their dignity is a constant, not a variable. And that constancy inspires respect. Dignity is, at its essence, a standard one that says, "This is how I treat myself, this is how I expect to be treated." It isn't a demand placed on others, it's a declaration made to oneself. You'll notice this when someone makes you wait, when they respond with indifference, when they speak vaguely, when they disappear, when they return without clarity. Most people in those moments fall apart. They look for explanations. They try to fix things. They ask what went wrong. They offer more. They adapt. They disguise their plea for attention as genuine interest. But the Stoic doesn't do that. The Stoic observes, evaluates, and if the other's energy is inconsistent, they don't argue, they don't beg, they don't demand. They simply withdraw not to punish, but to protect their peace. Walking away calmly is one of the highest acts of self-love, because it shows you understand that attraction is an exchange of energy, not a one-sided conquest. If you offer presence, attention, patience, and intention, and the broaden, other offers indifference, avoidance, or lukewarmness, the equation is broken. Dignity sees that imbalance and acts. Not from pain, but from certainty, the certainty that your worth is not negotiable. And here's the paradox. When you walk away with dignity, things often shift. Not always, but often. Because the other person senses that your presence was a privilege. They realize your value wasn't ordinary. They recognize you weren't a desperate option. They feel that your energy came not from fear, but from choice. And that realization changes everything. We live in a world full of people instantly available, but very few available with coherence. Dignity puts you in a different category. You're not the one who chases. You're the one who walks steady. You're not the one who begs. You're the one who decides. Dignity also reveals maturity. A mature person knows attraction has rhythm, not haste. It's born not from insistence, but from balance. Not from anxiety, but from clarity. not from lack, but from inner order. That's why it's so powerful, because it speaks a silent truth that can't be argued with. I value myself enough not to beg for what won't return. Dignity is the invisible border separating the wise from the desperate. It's the line between someone who wants connection and someone who wants to be chosen. It's what distinguishes those who possess themselves from those who lose themselves. And true attraction always leans toward the one who possesses themselves. Because those who possess themselves don't chase, don't insist, don't plead, they attract. And when you attract from dignity, you don't conquer through effort, you conquer through presence. Fourth Stoic lesson. Empathy is not weakness, it's emotional wisdom. There's a mistaken idea that's been passed down for generations that showing empathy makes you vulnerable, that understanding others puts you at a disadvantage, that feeling deeply exposes you, that perceiving others' emotions makes you easy to manipulate. But that belief, no matter how common, is false, completely false. Empathy doesn't weaken you, it sharpens you. It lets you see what others overlook. It gives you access to a language few can read. It makes you perceptive, attentive, profound. Empathy doesn't make you less strong, it makes you more aware. And in the realm of human connection, awareness is superior to any strategy. When you observe someone without judgment, when you understand what they feel without taking it on as your own, when you acknowledge their inner world without losing yours, you show a level of emotional sophistication that few people possess. Most people react to what others project. They catch the anxiety, the fear, the anger, and respond from that contagion, not from themselves. But the Stoics' empathy works differently. It isn't absorption, it's reading. It isn't contagion, it's interpretation. It isn't surrender, it's clarity. The empathy of the wise doesn't pull you under, it informs you. Imagine you're standing in front of someone you're drawn to. Their energy shifts, their voice falters, their words tangle slightly. Most would respond to that discomfort with their own overthinking, talking too much, trying to fix the atmosphere. But not you. You observe, you listen, you perceive. You see what isn't being said. You realize that the unease you sense isn't about you, it's about their own inner world. You see the fear, the insecurity, the story they've lived, the wounds they haven't fully healed. And instead of reacting, you understand. That understanding is what separates an impulsive soul from a tempered one. Those who can understand without judgment become a safe space, not an added pressure. Stoic empathy is this: seeing others without losing your center, feeling them without giving up your stability, understanding them without carrying their burdens. And that, far from weakening you, makes you capable of navigating any interaction without getting lost in it. Because you know which emotions belong to you and which don't. Which gestures are yours and which are reflections of someone else's inner process. Which silence is to hold and which to release. You master the art of being present without dissolving. Epictetus put it clearly: the wise distinguish between what depends on them and what doesn't. Applied to emotion, that means something simple yet profound. The feelings of others are not your responsibility. You can understand them, but you don't have to live them. You can accompany them, but you don't have to adopt them. You can observe them, but you don't have to obey them. That distinction protects you. It draws the invisible line between empathy and loss of identity. Once you grasp that, you can listen without exhaustion, hold space without depletion, and offer calm without paying for it with your inner balance. True empathy also reveals a surprising kind of strength, because it means being able to hold the emotional weight of a moment without breaking, without reacting impulsively, without using someone else's feelings as an excuse to lose your center. It means looking at someone in chaos and not becoming part of it. It means standing before frustration without letting it infect you. It means witnessing another's pain without turning it into your own wound. That requires structure. That requires discipline. That requires self-mastery. And what could be more attractive than someone who can feel deeply without losing themselves? In relationships, that ability is gold. Because while many try to impress, compete, persuade, or seduce, those who practice empathy through composure achieve something deeper: presence. The other person feels heard, they feel understood, they feel seen, but they don't feel pressured, they don't feel watched through expectation. They don't feel analyzed. Empathy soothes, it opens, it softens, it invites. People don't fall in love with those who speak perfectly, they fall in love with those who understand them without demanding anything in return. The mistake lies in confusing empathy with compliance. The Stoics' empathy doesn't say yes to everything. It isn't afraid to set limits. It isn't afraid to walk away when something doesn't align. It isn't afraid to say, "This isn't for me," even if the other person feels strongly. Empathy doesn't mean tolerating poor treatment. It doesn't mean excusing inconsistency. It doesn't mean carrying someone who refuses to stand on their own. It means seeing clearly, and clarity knows when to leave, not from anger, but from lucidity. That ability to feel and decide at the same time is what transforms empathy into emotional wisdom. Empathy also helps you detect inconsistencies. When you truly listen, you notice subtleties others miss. You see the gap between words and tone. You sense the difference between desire and habit, between real interest and shallow curiosity. You know when something is genuine and when it's insecurity in disguise. You know when to act and when to hold distance. Refined empathy doesn't make you naive, it makes you perceptive. It keeps you from falling for illusions. It lets you see the soul without getting trapped by appearances. There's a quiet beauty in someone who can look at another person without wanting to change them. That's the kind of empathy that captivates, the kind that accepts, not corrects, that accompanies, not imposes, that understands, not controls. When someone feels they don't need to be different to be accepted by you, they relax, they lower their guard, they breathe, they show themselves. And you, through your composure, can see the essence behind the mask they wear with the rest of the world. The person who can create that kind of space becomes unforgettable. Stoicism teaches that greatness doesn't lie in mastering others, but in mastering yourself. And empathy, in a way, is a reflection of that self-mastery. Because to feel without losing yourself, to understand without absorbing, to accompany without falling, you must be steady within. Empathy, then, isn't emotional weakness, it's emotional maturity. It isn't fragility, it's containment. It isn't lack of boundaries, it's clarity of them. Empathy doesn't leave you exposed, it makes you more human without making you less strong. True connection isn't a game of words, it's an exchange of perception. And those who master empathy through composure become impossible to ignore. Why? Because most people live trapped in their own heads, worrying about what they'll say, how they look, or how they'll be perceived. But you don't. You observe, you read, you understand, you connect. And without exaggerating or proving anything, you radiate a depth few people possess. That depth attracts because it reveals stability. And stability is magnetic, not rigid stability, conscious stability. The kind that embraces without dissolving. The kind that feels without breaking. In a world where everyone wants to be heard, the one who knows how to listen wins hearts effortlessly. Not because they're performing, but because they're present. Emotional presence, when combined with self-control, becomes magnetic. Empathy rooted in calm is a silent but relentless force. It elevates your value without you having to say a word. So, far from avoiding empathy, cultivate it. Because it doesn't make you weak, it makes you wise. It doesn't make you manipulable, it makes you perceptive. It doesn't make you vulnerable, it makes you human. And in a world full of masks, authentic humanity is the rarest and therefore the most attractive trait of all. Fifth Stoic lesson. Self-control is the new magnetism. Self-control is not repression. It's not pretending nothing affects you. It's not tightening your face or faking coldness. True self-control is something else entirely. It's understanding. It's presence. It's knowing exactly what you feel and still choosing how to respond, not from impulse, but from intention, not from urgency, but from clarity. And that, in a world where everyone reacts without thinking, becomes a kind of magnetism impossible to ignore. Think about it. Most people live at the rhythm of their latest emotion. When they feel anxious, they talk too much. When they feel fear, they retreat. When they feel desire, they rush. When they feel anger, they attack. They are ruled by an emotional tide that shifts every hour. You've seen it, people who ruin a conversation by hurrying, who destroy a bond out of jealousy, who lose opportunities because their impulses take command. But the Stoic acts differently. The Stoic doesn't get dragged along. The Stoic breathes. The Stoic chooses. That's magnetism, keeping your own rhythm while everyone else chases chaos. When you control your energy, your tone, your gaze, your reaction, the other person feels it. They sense something rare. Stability, presence, safety. Not the superficial confidence of someone puffed up with ego, but the quiet assurance of someone who is already aligned within. That kind of assurance gives weight to your silence, depth to your words, and presence to your very being. Self-control is attractive because it shows mastery not over others, but over yourself. Those who govern their impulses prove they can govern their decisions. And in an emotionally impulsive world, that is leadership, that is maturity, that is rarity. The human mind instinctively trusts those who don't explode, who don't rush, who don't get lost in noise. Self-control becomes an aura, a silent form of authority. Think of it this way. When someone provokes you, your impulse wants to react. When someone ignores you, your impulse wants to insist. When someone draws your interest, your impulse wants to hurry things. But if you don't follow the impulse, if you choose pause instead of reaction, breath instead of chaos, the message is clear. I'm in command here. And it's not about commanding the other. It's about commanding yourself. That kind of inner authority is felt without a word. People can feel when you're ruled by anxiety and when you're ruled by your center. They can sense when you're chasing the moment and when you're the one setting the pace. Calm is a language. Self-control is its accent. And in that accent there's something irresistible. It tells others you don't break easily, that you don't drown in someone else's emotions, that you know who you are even in the storm. Self-control also makes you selective, not from arrogance, but from lucidity. You don't react to every stimulus. You don't hand your pump out, attention to everything. You don't respond instantly just because someone demands your energy. Your time has a filter. Your presence has criteria. Your words have a threshold. That automatically raises your value, because what is rare without effort attracts. You're not scarce out of strategy. You're scarce because you have direction. Picture a conversation where the other person loses control, gets nervous, speaks too fast, changes tone, contradicts themselves, and you simply listen. You don't catch their chaos. You don't speed up. You don't justify. Your calm becomes a mirror. They see themselves, recognize it, and disarm. Self-control doesn't intimidate. It organizes. It isn't violence. It's structure. It isn't coldness. It's conscious presence. In that presence, people feel they can lower their guard without the world collapsing. Self-control also sends a silent message about your standards. Those who control their emotions control access to themselves. You don't chase after those who pull away. You don't beg for clarity. You don't plead for explanations. You don't argue to win. You don't react to prove anything. You move from coherence, not from lack. And that kind of movement is magnetic because it shows your center is not in someone else's hands. Marcus Aurelius said it perfectly: power over oneself is the most absolute power. Others may have beauty, words, charm, presence, but if they don't have themselves, everything else is unstable. You, on the other hand, when you have yourself, when you don't betray, rush, or lower yourself, project something money can't buy: balance. When someone faces a balanced person, they feel two things: respect and curiosity. Respect, because self-control reveals discipline. Curiosity, because it's rare to see someone who isn't captive to emotion. That curiosity makes you unforgettable. That respect makes you attractive. That steadiness makes you dangerous in the best way. Self-control also forges a psychological advantage. You see what others don't. When you're not busy reacting, you can observe, you can read, you can sense the environment, you can detect inconsistency, you can understand dynamics others miss because they're trapped in emotional urgency. Those who react lose vision. Those who observe gain clarity. And clarity is power. Remember this: people can feel when you speak from impulse and when you speak from mastery. Energy can't be faked. A single sentence spoken from control weighs more than 100 words spoken from anxiety. A held gaze says more than a desperate speech. A firm silence carries more than a frantic explanation. Self-control turns every gesture into meaning. And here's the truth almost no one wants to accept: your attractiveness doesn't increase when you do more, but when you are more. When you are more conscious, more grounded, more self-possessed. When others sense that even if the world turned to chaos, you'd still stand firm. Self-control isn't repression. It's emotional elegance. It's knowing you could react but choosing not to. It's having the strength to respond but preferring to observe. It's having the voice to shout but choosing to speak softly. That kind of strength never goes unnoticed. You don't need to explain it. You don't need to show it off. It's felt. And that is magnetism. Sixth Stoic rule: authenticity is your most powerful weapon. Most people don't know who they are without an audience. They change their tone when someone enters, their posture when someone watches, their words when someone listens. They live adjusting themselves to others' expectations, molding their essence to please, shaping their identity to avoid discomfort, to be chosen, to fit in. And the curious thing is that the harder they try to appear, the less they connect. Because nothing is less attractive than someone who betrays themselves just to be accepted. Authenticity is something else. It's an inner stillness, a quiet coherence that doesn't need explanation. It's walking through the world without asking permission to exist. It's speaking the way you speak, thinking the way you think, feeling the way you feel, without editing your truth for validation. Authenticity doesn't shout or seek approval, it simply is. And that naturalness, that transparency, that "I don't need to hide," carries a force that disarms, a presence that lingers, an energy that stays in the memory of anyone who encounters it. Authenticity attracts because it's rare. And rarity, when real, becomes a virtue. Everyone seems to perform, few seem to live. Everyone plays a role, few show the face behind the mask. Everyone tries to impress, few dare to simply be. That's why when someone shows up with essence, no masks, no excess, no strategy, they stand out, not because they're perfect, but because they're real. And what's real impacts far more than what's idealized. The authentic person doesn't need to inflate themselves to appear confident. Their confidence is born from congruence. They don't boast because they don't compete. They don't exaggerate because they're not afraid of being enough. They don't embellish because what they are is already enough. Authenticity undresses others. It makes them more honest, too. When someone senses that you're not playing a role, they lower their guard. When they feel you're not measuring every word to please, they respect you. Because truth has its own language, one that's felt, even when unspoken. But being authentic doesn't mean saying everything you think or exposing every vulnerability. That's the cheap version of honesty. Stoic authenticity is different. It's knowing who you are without needing to explain it. It's showing yourself without performing. It's being transparent without losing your mystery. You don't share everything, but you don't fake anything either. You don't exaggerate your virtues, but you don't shrink them. You don't abandon your character, but you don't impose your ego. The authenticity of the wise is balance, not overflow. Being authentic means accepting your contradictions without trying to disguise them. It means acknowledging your wounds without turning them into a script. It means allowing others to know you without losing your center. It means walking with the dignity of someone who knows they don't need to be perfect to be valuable. Authenticity makes you free. Free from others' judgment, free from fear of rejection, free from the social theater, free from the insecurity that asks, "Do they like me?" Because you stop trying to please. You start trying to be. When you stop performing, your energy changes. People notice it instantly. You stop looking over your shoulder, stop monitoring every gesture, stop fearing silence, stop filling space just to seem interesting. You start moving from calm. Your tone softens, your gaze steadies, your presence becomes grounded. Not because you're acting composed, but because you are. And nothing carries more weight than the genuine. Authenticity also reveals courage, because showing yourself as you are means risking not being liked. And that risk is exactly what makes you strong. Those who dare to be authentic prove they have roots. They don't crumble over an opinion. They don't change their essence for a comment. They don't sacrifice their character for company. That quiet strength is deeply attractive. People feel safe around someone who doesn't change with every breeze of circumstance. The most seductive thing about authenticity is that it doesn't chase. It doesn't try to convince, to hold, or to manipulate. It simply shows up, and whoever resonates with it stays. Whoever doesn't leaves. That emotional neutrality, that lack of desperation, that ability to say, "This is me," without fear. That's what creates magnetism. Because inner strength is felt more in calm than in performance. The authentic person also knows when to walk away when something doesn't align. They don't prolong discomfort just to seem polite, nor force conversations just to seem kind. They can say no with serenity. They can set boundaries without raising their voice. They can leave without conflict. Authenticity is an inner compass that always points toward truth. And when you move guided by it, you never lose your way. Marcus Aurelius said it best, "Be straight, not straightened." In other words, don't twist yourself to please, stay firm in your nature. Authenticity is exactly that, being straight without rigidity, being yourself without arrogance, being clear without aggression. Those who live this way project a stability that's almost magnetic. They don't need adornment. Their essence is already enough. And here lies the most powerful truth. Authenticity doesn't charm everyone, but it deeply moves those who matter. Because the superficial seek performance, the immature seek validation, the insecure seek drama. But the conscious ones, the awake ones, those who live with intention, they seek authenticity. And when they find it, they recognize it. That's why, in a world full of imitations, authenticity isn't just a Stoic principle, it's an evolutionary advantage, a silent magnet, a declaration of power. You don't need to speak louder. You need to be truer, because the authentic always attracts. Seventh Stoic rule: don't rush those who have value, don't run. Haste is a form of fear, and almost no one admits it. People hurry because they fear not being enough, because they think if they don't respond fast, they'll be forgotten, because they believe that if they don't show interest immediately, they'll lose their chance. They live convinced that everything is fragile, urgent, scarce. That's why they rush. That's why they speak before thinking, write before breathing, act out of anxiety. But what few realize is that haste doesn't bring anything closer. It drives everything away. Haste exposes lack, and nothing reveals someone's insecurity faster than how they rush to avoid losing what they fear they need. The wise don't chase anyone, not because they don't feel, but because they feel from serenity. Not because they don't care, but because they care about themselves enough not to betray their own rhythm. The calm of someone who values themselves sends a silent message. If it's meant for me, I won't need to chase it. And that conviction is the foundation of a magnetism very few ever develop. Emotional acceleration always appears in the same moments. When you like someone, when there's potential, when a spark appears that you want to keep alive. Then your mind races, your thoughts run ahead, your voice changes tone, your hands reach for the phone more often, your anxiety tries to speed up the moment. But every time you do, you lose power. Because haste communicates need, and need weakens. Those with value don't run because they know their presence is already enough. They don't need to force contact or exaggerate interest. Their energy speaks before their words. Their calm is a declaration. I'm not here to chase, I'm here to share. That difference creates balance. Those who rush feel they have something to win. Those who walk steadily know they already carry something within. The impulsive say everything they feel the moment they feel it. The wise let emotion breathe before it becomes a word. They don't speak from trembling, they speak from intention. They don't act from fear of losing, they act from the desire to live in alignment. And that pause, that small, conscious pause, changes everything. Look around. People reply in seconds, panic over unanswered messages, despair when interactions don't move at the pace they imagined. Impatience rules. But when someone appears who moves not from urgency but from serenity, they stand out. Calm confuses, because it's rare. Calm intrigues, calm invites, calm soothes. Calm shows that you're not tied to the outcome. In truth, haste isn't speed, it's fear disguised as movement. And when fear drives your actions, you always operate below your true value. Saying too much, too soon, revealing too much, giving too much, insisting too much. Every excess is born from the insecurity of someone who feels they must compensate. But the wise don't compensate, they hold steady. They hold their rhythm, their line, their presence, their peace. When you stop rushing, you show that you don't depend on the moment, you depend on your judgment. No matter how strong the emotion, you choose when, how, and if to act. That self-control doesn't make you cold, it makes you conscious. And consciousness is desirable because it signals maturity. Most people melt into emotion and drown in it. The wise hold it without losing themselves. Calm also reveals your level of selection. Those who rush accept crumbs. Those who rush seek validation. Those who rush adjust to someone else's rhythm, out of fear of being left behind. But those who stay steady make it clear they won't accept less than what they deserve. Their pause is a boundary. Their rhythm is a standard. Their serenity is a filter that separates the superficial from the real. Marcus Aurelius said, "The loss of calm is the loss of reason." And losing reason means losing yourself. When you rush, your essence dissolves, your judgment blurs, your energy becomes polluted. You start acting not from your center, but from your scarcity. But when you remain calm, even in emotion, you reveal an integrity that impresses more than any words ever could. The person who doesn't run has something most others don't in a direction. They know how to read a moment, when to advance, when to wait. They don't panic in silence. They don't interpret pauses as rejection. They don't try to fill every space. They don't rush a process that needs time to mature, because they understand that what matters is never built from urgency. Haste seeks fast results, calm seeks true ones, and that difference changes everything. When you stop running, you develop a presence others feel as emotional stability. You become a pause in a frantic world, a deep breath in the noise, a contrast, a refuge, someone whose life doesn't depend on the next message, but on their own inner order. That is the essence of Stoic magnetism. You don't need to run, you don't need to force, you don't need to rush anything. Your rhythm is your power, and whoever wants to walk with you must learn to respect it. 8th Stoic rule: speak from intention, not from emotion. Most of what people say doesn't come from clarity, it comes from impulse. They speak because they feel pressure. They speak because they can't stand silence. They speak because they believe that if they don't say something right away, they'll lose influence, connection, or presence. But that kind of communication builds nothing. It leaves no mark. It doesn't move anyone. It only reveals that the person is being ruled by their latest emotion. The wise, however, master another form of expression. They speak from intention, not from emotion. When you speak from emotion, you say what soothes the moment, not what supports your purpose. You say what calms your fear, not what reflects your character. You say what gives you a fleeting sense of control, not what conveys your truth. Words born of emotion are immature, tense, reactive, and the reactive never inspires respect. Sometimes it doesn't even inspire attention. But when you speak from intention, even silence carries weight, because every word is backed by thought. Every phrase is supported by choice. Every pause has meaning. Nothing leaves your mouth by accident. Nothing escapes without passing through the filter of your reason. And that way of speaking creates something far beyond attraction. It creates authority. Speaking from intention is not confusing honesty with overflow. It's not about saying the first thing I feel, but saying what remains true even when I feel it. It's not giving your truth from trembling, but from temperance. It's holding your word with coherence, not with impulse. Think of it this way: emotion pushes you, intention guides you. Emotion wants to come out fast. Intention wants to come out right. Emotion wants to be heard. Intention wants to be understood. And understanding creates deep connection, while reaction only creates noise. The Stoic understands that words are tools, not outlets. And tools are used with precision, not desperation. That's why he speaks little, but precisely. Not because he's cold, but because he knows that every phrase is a reflection of his inner world, and the wise guard their inner world like a temple. Speaking from emotion breeds misunderstanding. Speaking from intention breeds clarity. Speaking from emotion projects insecurity. Speaking from intention projects mastery. Speaking from emotion seeks an immediate reply. Speaking from intention doesn't need haste, because intention doesn't compete, it doesn't chase, it doesn't justify. Intention aligns with who you are, not with what you're afraid to lose. When someone interests you, emotion makes you talk too much. It makes you confess too quickly, expose your interest too soon, move forward without measure, say what hasn't matured yet. And that's where many lose their presence. Emotion drives them to over-explain, to over-justify, to over-communicate. But no one feels drawn to someone who cannot hold their own silence. Those who speak from intention don't need to explain themselves endlessly. They say only what's necessary, and they say it calmly. Their tone is steady. Their rhythm is slow. Their gaze accompanies their words without urgency. That combination creates something almost no one knows how to generate: meaning. Because you're not speaking from anxiety, you're speaking from choice. Intention has a language others can feel: firmness. Emotion has a language others can sense: instability. And this is key. People remember how you made them feel, not how much you said. Those who speak from intention make others feel peace, structure, clarity. Those who speak from emotion make others feel tension, doubt, excess. Marcus Aurelius repeated it. Speak only if your words improve upon the silence. That is the essence of Stoic communication. It's not about speaking less to hide yourself. It's about speaking better to honor yourself. Because when you speak from intention, you don't contradict yourself. You don't regret yourself. You don't betray yourself. You don't shrink. You don't scatter. And most importantly, your presence grows, even in silence. There's something almost unbreakable about a person who masters their word. They don't use it to impress, but to express. They don't use it to control, but to stay coherent. They don't use it to fill space, but to give shape to truth. Speaking from intention makes you magnetic because it shows you're not trying to win anything, you're simply being. And in a world full of people who talk to convince, that makes you exceptional. The wise speak from their center, the foolish speak from their emptiness. And in the end, that's the real power. Let your voice be an extension of your character, not of your fear. Ninth Stoic rule: be a refuge, not a storm. There are people who walk into a room and everything tightens, not because of what they say, but because of what they radiate. Their energy arrives before their words do. They are walking storms, restless, anxious, reactive, loaded with judgment, ready to interpret everything as a threat or a lack of attention. They're emotionally overflowing, and that overflow drives others away faster than any silence ever could. No one seeks shelter in the middle of a storm. No one feels at peace around someone vibrating from chaos. No one is drawn to a person who cannot hold themselves together. By contrast, there are people whose mere presence calms the room. Not because they're passive, but because they're aligned. They don't enter spaces to take energy, they come to hold it. They don't project lack, they project stability. They don't seek to be seen, but their serenity makes them impossible to ignore. They are refuge. They are steadiness. They are the difference between noise and resonance. And that kind of presence has a magnetism that can't be acted, it can only be embodied. Being a refuge doesn't mean being someone else's emotional therapist or carrying the wounds of others. It means that your way of being transmits order, not disorder. That your energy doesn't attack, that your expression doesn't threaten, that your calm doesn't depend on how you're treated. It means walking with a quiet kind of strength that doesn't demand, doesn't push, doesn't rush, it simply is. And that presence invites, it opens, it contains. The refuge is not the person who fixes others, it's the one whose stability allows others to lower their guard. They don't say, "You can count on me for everything," but their eyes, their tone, and their behavior communicate something deeper. You can breathe here. When someone feels that around you, they experience something rare: relief. And a person who brings relief becomes unforgettable. The storm, on the other hand, constantly needs attention. It needs validation fast. It needs immediate responses. Its energy is demanding, anxious, critical. It speaks from need, not from intention. And the problem is, no one feels drawn to emotional demand. Everyone, even the insecure, seeks depth, calm, and coherence. Because the human soul instinctively knows the difference between a harbor and a shipwreck. The Stoics understood this. They said the wise are like inner temples, firm, serene, ordered. No matter what happens outside, their structure doesn't collapse, not because they don't feel, but because they don't shatter under everything they feel. Their stability isn't a mask, it's emotional discipline. Their calm isn't the absence of pain, it's self-control. Their presence isn't indifference, it's clarity. Being a refuge carries an invisible elegance. You don't compete for attention. You don't need to be the center. You don't need to prove your worth. You don't react to every provocation. You don't raise your voice to be heard. Your authority doesn't come from volume, it comes from the quality of your presence. It's the kind of energy that makes others lower their tone when they speak to you, not because you intimidate them, but because you regulate them. A refuge listens without interrupting, observes without judging, responds without haste. They don't take everything as an offense, don't turn everything into drama, don't use their past as an excuse. They don't look at life searching for confirmation of their fears, they look for understanding. And that maturity is exactly what separates those with character from those with scattered emotions. You don't have to be perfect to be a refuge, you just have to be coherent. Coherent between what you feel and how you handle it. Coherent between what you think and what you say. Coherent between your rhythm and your behavior. Being a refuge also means having boundaries. A refuge isn't open to everyone, nor does it carry burdens that don't belong to it. It doesn't let others invade its past kingdoms. Peace. It doesn't let anyone drain its stability. In fact, the refuge exists because it knows how to say, "This is as far as it goes." No one respects what doesn't respect itself. Your calm only has value when you protect it. The wise don't absorb chaos, they transform it. Because their internal filter is clean, because they take nothing personally, because they don't depend on others' judgment, because they've worked on themselves enough not to collapse at the first emotional shadow that crosses their path. The storm, on the contrary, lives interpreting everything as an attack. Everything is personal, everything is a threat, everything is urgent, everything demands reaction. And that way of existing wears people down, destroys connection, and pushes others away. Storms can be impressive, yes, but no one wants to live inside one. Calm, on the other hand, calm becomes home. Ask yourself honestly, are you a space where others can rest, or are you an intensity they have to manage? Are you someone who brings order, or someone who demands rescue? Are you the one who regulates the energy in the room, or the one who ignites it without reason? The answers to those questions reveal more about your magnetism than any charm technique ever could. The truth is simple. Those who find peace in your presence stay. Those who find a storm run. Becoming a refuge isn't an act of seduction, it's an act of inner discipline. You train your mind, you organize your emotions, you clear your intentions, you refine your judgment. And suddenly, without forcing it, you become magnetic. Because calm is an emotional luxury few possess. And those who do, attract without needing to say much at all. 10th Stoic rule: what you don't chase finds you. Most people live believing that everything valuable must be chased. They think love is earned through persistence, attention through begging, connection through constant displays of effort. They run after situations, after people, after validation. But the more they run, the farther everything slips away. Pursuit has an inevitable psychological effect. It communicates lack, and lack repels even those who once seemed interested. The Stoic doesn't chase, not because he doesn't desire, but because he understands something others ignore. Whatever is forced loses its nature. Whatever is chased becomes contaminated. Whatever is begged for loses value. The wise know that life has a rhythm that doesn't respond to fear but to coherence. And coherence doesn't run, coherence attracts. When you stop chasing, something changes in your energy. Your tone becomes firmer, your focus sharper, your presence steadier. You no longer move from fear of losing, but from the certainty that what is meant for you will never need to be torn away. You don't rush. You don't over-adapt. You don't bow to silence or collapse under pauses. You simply keep walking. That stability is magnetic. The absence of desperation is a form of emotional elegance. What you don't chase finds you because your attitude communicates something few can express. Direction. You're not waiting to be chosen. You are choosing. You're not waiting to be validated, you validate yourself. You're not waiting for desperate signs, you read reality calmly. And those who live this way don't fall into emotional triangles, don't lose themselves in unnecessary drama, don't twist themselves to please others. Their life is a straight line, not a labyrinth. People feel when you need them, and they feel when you simply choose them. And there's an abyss between the two. Need suffocates, choice invites. When you chase, you become predictable, transparent in the worst way. Your intentions are obvious, your anxiety palpable, your energy easy to read. But when you stop chasing, when you observe, when you stay centered, something happens that few know how to handle. You become mysterious. Not artificial mystery, but the natural mystery of someone who doesn't live in urgency. And that sparks curiosity. Curiosity opens doors that insistence always closes. Marcus Aurelius said that nothing truly yours can ever be stolen, and that idea completely transforms how you relate to others. Because you realize that your peace is worth more than any person who demands you sacrifice it. That your dignity stands above any fleeting emotion. That your worth is not up for negotiation just to make someone stay. Those who are meant for you will come closer. Those who aren't will leave. And you remain whole. When you stop chasing, you allow things to reveal their true nature. If someone leaves you, understand they didn't belong. If someone returns you, understand they were connected. If someone stays without being pushed, you understand it was genuine. Haste has always been an illusion. Insistence has always been insecurity in disguise. Pursuit has always been fear of not being enough. But when you finally realize you don't need to convince anyone of your value, your magnetism changes. You stop acting from emptiness. You start acting from your center. And that's when life begins to return things you never expected. People who approach you by their own will, bonds that flow effortlessly, opportunities that appear without anxiety. Not because the universe is conspiring in your favor, but because you stopped sabotaging yourself with urgency. The wise don't run after what they want. They prepare to receive it. They grow strong enough to hold it. They discipline themselves to deserve it. They stay calm enough to recognize it. And when it arrives, they don't seize it with desperation, they take it with gratitude, with clarity, with presence, because it doesn't come to fill a void. It comes to accompany fullness. Pursuit is born of fear. Attraction is born of order. Magnetism is born of character. What you don't chase finds you, because when you no longer need, you choose. And when you choose from serenity, only what truly belongs to you arrives. 11th Stoic rule. The respect you have for yourself defines how you're treated. The world doesn't treat you as you deserve. It treats you as you treat yourself. This is an uncomfortable truth, one many prefer to ignore, because it demands responsibility, not for what others do, but for what you allow. Yet it's absolute. Your boundaries teach, your silences permit, your decisions instruct, your behavior dictates. Self-respect isn't declared, it's demonstrated. And in that demonstration, the kind of people who enter your life are defined, and so are the ones who never cross your path again. When you don't respect yourself, the world can smell it. It shows in how quickly you respond to those who ignore you, in how you over-explain when no one asked, in how you justify mistreatment, in how you accept crumbs disguised as affection. The lack of self-respect has a scent, and that scent is need. And need, in any context, attracts the wrong kind of people. Manipulators, the immature, opportunists, takers who mistake your good heart for an open door. But when you do respect yourself, everything shifts. You don't need to announce it. You don't need to say, I'm worth it. You don't need to provoke, to prove, to impose. Your presence says it for you in how you move, how you guard your time, how calmly you say no, how gracefully you walk away when your peace is disturbed. Self-respect creates an energetic field around you. Those who don't resonate with that frequency can't come close without discomfort, while those who recognize it feel at home. From a Stoic lens, self-respect isn't arrogance, it's not moral superiority, it's not hollow pride, it's clarity. It's knowing who you are and who you're not, knowing what you accept and what you don't. It's understanding that your energy is sacred, not everyone gets access. It's realizing you're not here to carry other people's burdens or to fix souls that don't want to be fixed. It's walking through life conscious of your worth, not begging for it. Marcus Aurelius said, "Dignity is the armor of the soul." And he was right. Dignity isn't shown by what you shout, but by what you refuse to tolerate, not by what you demand, but by what you decline. Not by how you defend yourself, but by how you choose yourself. Your dignity doesn't need applause, it needs decisions. Decisions that hurt sometimes, decisions that leave you alone. Decisions that force you to close doors you wish could stay open. But it's in those very decisions that your strength reveals itself. Self-respect also organizes your relationships. Those who respect themselves select. They don't enter lukewarm connections, don't accept halves, don't settle for confusion. They don't choose from loneliness or anxiety. They choose from clarity. That reduces noise but increases value. Fewer people, more essence, less drama, more depth, less uncertainty, more coherence. The problem is, many confuse self-respect with coldness. They think setting boundaries is being harsh. They think saying no is being rigid. They think walking away is being prideful. But the truth is the opposite. Self-respect doesn't harden, it refines. It doesn't distance, it filters. It doesn't freeze, it protects. It's not aggression toward others. It's love toward yourself. Those who respect you don't need proof. Those who don't will always ask for more. The way you choose yourself sets the tone for everything that follows. If you're not the first to value yourself, no one else will. If you're not the first to protect your peace, no one else will bother. If you're not the first to say, "This hurts me," no one will notice. The responsibility to guard your peace will always be yours, because peace is a privilege you don't hand to just anyone. Self-respect also transforms your energy. You stop reacting to everything. You stop explaining every move. You stop trying to convince those who refuse to understand. Your presence becomes quieter, firmer, clearer. And that kind of clarity attracts those who have also done their inner work. People vibrating in chaos will avoid your stability. People vibrating in awareness will recognize it. There's an undeniable beauty in someone who can calmly say, "This is who I am, and this I won't allow." No shouting, no fighting, no drama. Just a clean, firm, respectful boundary. That kind of person becomes magnetic because they radiate a power that doesn't need validation. The power of character. And character, in the human realm, outweighs appearance, charm, or pretty words. Those who have self-respect don't fear losing anyone because they know they can never lose what truly honors them. That's the Stoic essence. To choose peace over fear. To choose dignity over attachment. To choose worth over company. It may hurt at first, but what comes after is freedom. Freedom in knowing no one can treat you beneath what you allow. Freedom in knowing your life is no longer ruled by emotional crumbs. Freedom in knowing your worth is never up for negotiation just to make someone stay. And when you reach that freedom, you never settle for less again. 12th Stoic rule. To conquer is not to possess, it is to inspire. Most people confuse conquest with control. They think to conquer means to obtain, to secure, to keep. They believe love is measured by how much attention they receive, how many messages arrive, how many proofs they can demand. They think bonds grow stronger by holding tighter, by clinging, by keeping close what they fear losing. But what you grip too tightly slips away. What you try to control breaks. What you attempt to possess withers. That's how the human soul works. It moves toward what inspires it and runs from what imprisons it. The Stoic knows something different. He knows that true conquest has nothing to do with keeping someone, it has everything to do with elevating them, with inspiring them, with leaving them with the feeling that being around you restores their clarity, their calm, their direction. Stoic conquest is not noise, it's presence. It's not insistence, it's coherence. It's not pressure, it's character. When you become an inspiration, you don't need tactics, games of seduction, or rehearsed words. You don't need to perform exaggerated versions of yourself or prove anything. Your way of being says it all. Your discipline speaks louder than your compliments. Your self-control carries more weight than your looks. Your emotional steadiness is more seductive than any line you could say. The human soul always seeks refuge, not storms. It seeks steadiness, not chaos, coherence, not masks. That's why conquering through inspiration is a higher art, because it doesn't force, it doesn't manipulate, it doesn't hold on, it simply invites. Those who inspire don't need to chase, they move from their own axis. They're guided by their principles. They don't lose themselves in someone else's intensity. They don't change their behavior out of fear of loss. Inspiration is born from authenticity, and authenticity never begs. Inspiration is built through daily acts. The way you speak to yourself, the way you manage your emotions, the calm with which you respond, the grace with which you walk away when something is no longer healthy. Every coherent decision is a spark that illuminates. Every boundary you honor is proof that your inner world is in order, and that attracts. Because it's rare, it's not easy, it's not fragile. When you become a steady, strong, calm presence, something awakens in others. Your energy asks a silent question. What if I could live like that too? That question is where inspiration begins. And inspiration is the seed of true conquest. Those who want to possess, demand. Those who want to inspire, offer. Those who want to possess, fear. Those who inspire, trust. Those who want to possess, need. Those who inspire, choose. The difference is immense. One operates from lack, the other from abundance. One from fear, the other from clarity. One from urgency, the other from calm. And calm, when it's real, has a glow that can't be faked. It's the glow of someone who doesn't lose their center even when the world shakes. It's the glow of someone who doesn't crumble over silence or delays. It's the glow of someone who doesn't need to ask for love because they already live from it. The Stoic understands that to conquer isn't to keep someone trapped, it's to give them space to be themselves without fear. It's to show them that being around your energy brings rest, not tension. That your presence doesn't suffocate, it orders. That your dialogue doesn't confuse, it clarifies. That with you they need no masks, no defenses. That's the deepest form of conquest. The one that seeks nothing, but ends up gaining everything. To inspire also requires courage. It means acting even when no one is watching. It means staying coherent even without recognition. It means working on your character even when no one applauds. It means walking straight, even when no one follows. But the inner strength born from that discipline makes you unforgettable. People forget what you say, forget what you promise, but they never forget how you made them feel. And when you make them feel calmer, clearer, stronger, your presence becomes an emotional reference point. The most curious thing is that when you conquer through inspiration, you never feel like you're conquering. There's no forced effort, no inner tension. You're simply being yourself, but your best self. The version that doesn't react from impulse, that doesn't collapse from fear, that doesn't need external proof to feel valuable. And that version of you is irresistible. To conquer is not to possess, it is to elevate, to illuminate, to make the other feel, through your presence, the desire to become something greater, not because you ask them to, but because you embody it. That is the conquest that lasts. That is the conquest that transcends. That is Stoic conquest, the final truth you needed to hear. You made it here because a part of you knew you needed this blow of clarity, not to learn how to conquer someone else, but to stop losing yourself in the attempt. And now that you've heard every principle, crossed through every idea, felt how some phrases opened wounds, while others offered peace, there's something you must understand before this ends. Nothing you've just heard will matter if you go back to living the same way. Your life changes when you change. Your energy changes when you realign. Your presence changes when you decide to stop being a shadow in your own story. Maybe you've spent years trying to please, trying to be enough, trying to fit in, trying not to make others uncomfortable. Maybe you've loved out of urgency, spoken out of fear, acted out of insecurity. Maybe you've abandoned yourself so many times that today you hardly recognize who you are, and yet you're still here, still trying to rebuild, still searching for a different way to exist. And the most powerful part is this: you're no longer trying to conquer them, you're trying to conquer yourself. Because now you know your mind, your calm, your boundaries, your dignity, your authenticity. That's what makes you magnetic. Not your words, not your performances, not your sacrifices. What truly draws others is who you are when no one's watching. That's the core of it all. That's the point that defines your worth. And at that point, Stoicism stops being philosophy, it becomes a way of life. A way of life where you are your own guardian, where you decide what you accept and what you don't, where you choose how you want to show up in the world, where your character weighs more than your emotions, where your presence says more than your words, where your calm opens doors your urgency always closed. The question now is simple, brutal, and honest. Which version of you walks out of this episode? The one who goes back to begging for attention? Or the one who inspires through presence? The one who chases what they fear losing? Or the one who walks steadily toward what they deserve? The one who needs to be chosen? Or the one who chooses themselves first? Your answer won't be spoken here. It'll be revealed when you face the silence of a message that never comes, the temptation to react impulsively, the anxiety of wanting to control what was never yours to control. It's in those unseen moments that you'll prove whether you've truly learned something or just listened to another episode. And if this ending stirs something deep inside you, it's because a part of you has already awakened. A part of you knows you deserve a calmer, more conscious, more dignified, more ordered life. A life where you no longer abandon yourself for anyone. A life where your energy doesn't beg, it stands firm. A life where your worth isn't negotiated, it's embodied. Here is the final truth. You don't conquer through what you say, you conquer through what you are. And who you are from this moment on is entirely your choice. So breathe, reorder yourself, stand tall, silence the unnecessary, and begin to live like someone who no longer needs to prove anything because they finally understand everything. This session ends here. Your transformation doesn't. Your voice is essential here. Every reflection strengthens and elevates our community, reflecting the true value of each individual and contributing to our shared Stoic identity. The reflection that receives the most support will be set as the standard of this community of Stoic minds, a community that does not flee from pain but walks through it with courage, with wisdom, with honor. We will see each other in our next gathering at Stoicism for Winners, where we will continue exploring the riches of Stoic wisdom applied to modern life. Now, take the opportunity to deepen your Stoic practice with new recommended podcast sessions. Follow us so you don't miss any reflection that could help you at just the moment when everything feels overwhelming. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we publish episodes designed to accompany you when life feels heavy, when it's hard to stay calm, when you need a word to remind you who you are. Not following us is to risk missing exactly that lesson that could bring back the peace you have been seeking. Until we meet again, remember, you are the sole owner of your perception, the creator of your peace, and the warrior of your own battle. This is the legacy of Stoicism, the art of being invincible.